Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. It's Tuesday morning, so it's time for our wavering video here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. We're going to give you some of our favorite pickups for this coming week, and today I'm going to be joined by contributing writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports, Logan Glaser. Logan, thanks so much for joining me. As always, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. Excited to break down the slate.
Yeah, and it's either the start, it's most likely the start of the playoffs in most of your leagues, so it's a huge week for a lot of owners. And then there was a lot of injuries again last week, unfortunately. So you might be needing to search this waiver wire a little bit,
For
unfortunately.
sure. Yeah, there's a decent amount of options on the waiver wire this week, and it's pretty rare that we set that throughout this year but lots of running back injuries, especially this week.
Yeah, that game on Monday night was crazy. People were getting knocked out left and right. It was terrible. It was hard to
Kyler
watch.
was down early. Stevenson left. James Conner had a little scare, but he came back in and finished strong. But
Yeah, crazy. Hopefully, we don't have to deal with that next week, and playoffs go smoothly. People don't have to deal with injury, but it's the NFL, so you never know. Let's jump into this, though, Logan, and talk about some of our pickups, our favorite pickups for this week. So, start at the quarterback spot. Who do you like as a waiver wire pickup this week in QB?
yeah, this is a dark horse, but I'm going with Sam Darnold as my waiver pickup. He's only 12% owned on the site. What I like about him is he has such a high ceiling as a quarterback. Last year, this is a long time ago, but last year he led the NFL weeks 1 through 4 with fantasy point scoring, and he got off to an electric start, and then he just absolutely fell after those 4 weeks. But he shows capability of having that high ceiling. He can also rush. He had 30 rushing yards. He can also score through the run game. The one thing that limits him compared to last year is he does not have Christian McCaffrey to throw out of the backfield, but he does have that chemistry with Moore, and he also has a great upcoming schedule. He's got Pittsburgh this week, followed by Detroit, which those games are always high shootouts. So I like him as a pickup this week.
And who would have thought the Panthers? I believe they control their own destiny at this point.
Yeah, they sure do, and it's not that crazy of a schedule that they have either. If they could somehow sneak in, that would be pretty remarkable, especially after trading McCaffrey.
Yeah, and firing their coach. Craziness.
Yeah.
All right. My pickup is Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. I like him at QB this week. I thought he looked good in his first NFL start, scored 23.6 fantasy points against a really pretty good Bucs defense. He was 16 of 21 for 185 yards and 2 scores, made some plays with his legs, ran in a score. He plays in one of the best offenses in football, and it doesn't look like he's too, if the stage is not too bright for him, I should say. So I think Purdy's a guy who could help fantasy teams the rest of the way. He's available in 78% of leagues as well. So if you're looking for a QB, one of your guys got knocked out, I'd consider picking up Purdy in that explosive 49ers offense. All right, let's move on to running back now. Who's a couple running back options for this week, Logan?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dare Agumbo. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is. I'm going with Dare. So he's only 1% owned, and this is because Damian Pierce is out for the next game, most likely the next 2 games. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they just sit Pierce for the rest of the season. Texans probably want to lose, get a better draft pick, and they currently have that by over a game and a half currently. So Dare, he's going to split the backfield with Rex is what I personally believe, and I expect him to get 4 or 5 receptions, which is great for PPR purposes. He might not score, he might not get tons of rushing yards, but he's going to put up a couple of receptions, and that's all you're looking for out of these waiver pickups. Go out there and get 4 or 5 receptions, put up 10 fantasy points, and you just need that plug and play. The next one I'm going to be looking at is Marlon Mack. He's going up against Arizona. And this is also because of another injury. Mike Boone got hurt for Broncos. Their situation's a little bit more different than Houston because they don't own their first round draft pick after trading it away for Russell Wilson. But I still expect this to be a good game between Denver and Arizona. It's going to be very low scoring, but he's going to get a decent amount of workload. Marlon Mack had 16 fantasy points scored last week, and he had a huge reception out of the backfield. Again, with Mike Boone injured, it's going to probably be a split workload between Marlon Mack and Latavius Murray in that backfield.
So I'm in a similar situation with my pick for my first pick, and that's Pierre Strong. I like him with the Ramondre Stevenson injury. Now with New England, we're probably not going to know on Stevenson until maybe right up until game time because they don't reveal anything in New England, which stinks for fantasy owners. But That's the deal. But Stevenson was banged up in that game. He was in and out of the game, and he did not look good when he returned, and then he left again. So that's a concern. So Strong might be the guy this week. Damian Harris is also banged up, and I thought Strong looked the best out of the backs that got in the game. Harris, the rookie, was in there as well, but I thought Strong played better. He got 7 touches for 90 total yards, scored a touchdown, showed big playability. He looked like a 3-down back. They like to run the ball a lot in New England as well. He's available in 98% of leagues. So if you're looking for maybe a flex option for this week, I think Strong could be that guy as long as Stevenson is out. My next pickup is more of a speculative ad, and that's Jordan Mason with the San Francisco 49ers. So if McCaffrey's healthy and playing, I think Mason has little value. But if McCaffrey would happen to go down, wow, Mason's value would be huge for the playoffs. And I think if you're a McCaffrey owner, you have to go grab him for sure. He's available in 70% of leagues. And even with limited playing time, Mason, he's top 50 rushing yards each of the past 2 games. Like I said, if McCaffrey's playing, I'm probably not going to use Mason. Maybe if I'm in a really deep league, I consider him at a flex spot. But overall, I'm probably not playing him if McCaffrey's around. But he is great insurance for McCaffrey. And like I said earlier, that offense is top-notch in San Francisco. So I want all those pieces if they're starting. And Mason could be a guy, could end up getting a couple starts if something were to happen to McCaffrey. All right, let's move on to that receiver position. There's a lot of quality options, I thought, this week at this receiver spot. Who do you like, Logan?
Yeah, there sure is. And the first one I'm going to go is a higher owned percentage player, and that's Donovan Peoples-Jones. So he's only available in 17% of leagues, but I really like him this week. He's playing a weak Pittsburgh secondary. They're ranked 27th against opposing wide receivers, which is very hard to believe out of a Pittsburgh defense. Amari Cooper is a bit banged up last week. He had a hip injury and it was pretty questionable if he was actually going to play. He played, but he didn't have that great of a game. And offense was mainly focused around Donovan Peoples-Jones. He had 8 receptions, put up 19.4 fantasy points, and him and Deshaun Watson gelled very well together. And 8 of his last 10 games, he has double-digit scoring, which he's only available in 17% of leagues. But if he's available in your league, look to get him. If you have him on your bench as well, he's a quality start option this week, I believe. The second one I'm going to be going with is Noah Brown. So last week he had 4 receptions for 85 yards. It's kind of really when CeeDee Lamb has an off game, Noah Brown kind of steps up and takes over that play. So Lamb had some targets, but he just couldn't pull in receptions. But again, Noah Brown had a great week last week. He's shown good chemistry with Dak Prescott. He has those up and down games. So sometimes he can go off, put up 75 plus yards, but then he also has those games that you have 10, 20 yards. But again, this is another one of those. If CeeDee Lamb goes down, Noah Brown shoots up the rankings for my wide receivers.
Yep, I agree. And a couple of receivers I like this week. DJ Chark, he made my list last week, but man, he's really starting to come on. He continues to emerge since he's come back from his injury. He has 90-plus yards, 2 straight games, at least 14 fantasy points each of those games. Lions are really an explosive offense at this point. I know Jameson Williams is around as well, but he's not getting on the field a whole lot at this point. Chark's still the guy opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's getting a lot of work. He's still out there in a lot of leagues, too, more than half the leagues on our site, so he's available in 59% of leagues, and I don't think his last 2 games are a fluke, and I like his schedule going forward as well. So I think he could make some waves in the fantasy playoffs. My next pick is Elijah Moore. He was everybody's kind of favorite before the season, hasn't really panned out, but he's starting to get it done now with Mike White as his QB. He's getting on the field a lot more. He actually led the Jets in targets last week with 10. That was more than Garrett Wilson. He has double-digit fantasy points 2 of 3 games. That offense looks a lot better with Mike White as QB. He plays the Lions and Jags the next 2 games as well. I think he's a good addition for the stretch run for fantasy teams. He's available in 61% of leagues as well. All right, let's move on to tight end, the always frustrating tight end spot. Evan Ingram was the big hit last week. If you were one of the savvy owners to pick him up and start him, who do we think could possibly do that this week, Logan?
Yeah, 39 fantasy points by Ingram last week. It's going to be very hard to replicate that, but my pick this week is going to be Tyler Conklin with the Jets. So he's only 67% owned. He's had 15 targets in his last 2 games. He didn't put up massive numbers in either one of those games, but I love the 15 targets those 2 games. Offense is kind of running through him. Mike White's looking for him in the offense, and he has a perfect playoff stretch of games coming up. So his 3 playoff games, you're looking at Detroit, Jacksonville, and Seattle. I expect all those to be more of a high-scoring games, all three of those, especially that Detroit game this week. So I really like him as a waiver pickup this week.
I do too. I think he's a good pickup, and he's kind of undervalued in my opinion because he's been pretty steady much of the year compared to some of these other tight ends. My tight end is a guy whose name I'm going to butcher now, Logan, and that's Chig Okonkwo, I believe is how you pronounce it. Okonkwo.
Yeah, you did good with that. That was good.
Yeah. All right. So I like him. He has double-digit fantasy points each of his last 2 games. He's emerging as a legit targeted tight end. I know Austin Hooper's there, but he's still getting on the field a lot. He has 10 catches his last 2 games. I do think it'll be a little hit or miss in this offense, but I think he has a high ceiling because he's a big play threat at the position. And when you look at him, he looks more like a receiver than a tight end in my position. So he could create some mismatches there in the secondary. And I think Okonkwo is going to do all right the rest of the way. And that offense is starting to play a little better as well, not just the running game, but the passing game starting to come along a little bit.
Yeah, he's looked really good the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, with Ryan Tannehill's played a little better as well. I think that's helped everything in that offense. All right, Logan, we like to give everybody a streaming defense. So let's talk about streamers for this week. If you're looking to stream a defense for week 15, who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going with Cardinals defense. So the over-under on the Arizona-Denver game is 36. I don't know if I've seen an over-under lower than that, besides maybe like a snowing game. But this is a very low over-under. Russell Wilson is probably questionable to play. He got kind of banged up with concussion symptoms. Kyler Murray's out of this game. You've got a couple possibly backup quarterbacks going up against each other and offenses that really aren't that great. You got a couple of playmakers on wide receivers and some running backs, but yeah, I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. So I'm going to go with Cardinals defense.
I like that pick for sure. That could be an ugly game to watch. My streaming defense is the Green Bay Packers. So they were owned a lot early in the season, but haven't really played very well. But they're out there and they're owned in just 28% of leagues, but they've played a little better lately. They have at least 5 fantasy points, 3 or 4 games, and they play the Rams, another offense I don't like much at all. I know Baker Mayfield had that huge comeback, looked great on just a couple days to get ready for that game, but I still don't really trust him in that offense, especially with all they're missing at receiver. Offensive line's a mess as well. So I think the Packers could post some pretty good numbers in this one. All right, Logan, that is our wavering video for week 15. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Good luck to everybody out there. Yeah, good luck to everybody out there for sure. It's a big week of games. Hopefully you made it to the playoffs in all of your leagues as well, and you can take advantage of actually getting to use the waiver wire this week, because if you're not, this is my other thing. If you're not in the playoffs, some leagues don't lock it. Please don't pick up players. You see it does happen.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Terrible. Don't pick up players if you didn't make the playoffs. You're going to mess everybody else up. That's my rant for the week. So just please keep that in mind. If you're not in the playoffs, don't pick up players in the waiver wire. All right, Logan, thanks again for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
All right, this has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Have a great day, everyone.